Hello, good morning, dear resident viewers. You're most welcome to the show. You are watching Focus on Parliament here at Civic Space TV, and I'm your host, Harris Ocampo. On this edition of Focus on Parliament, we take a deep dive into the workings of parliamentary committees. We look at how effective or ineffective they are and look at the recommendation or any reforms thereof to make them work better. And do this is an extraordinary panel of panelists. On my immediate left is Counsel Benjamin Katana, who is a lawyer, but also a member of the National Unity Platform. Benjamin, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Harris, and good morning to you, our viewers, and everyone joining this discussion. I'm glad to be part of the panel.
How is the National Unity Platform?
We are building.
All right, that sounds promising. That sounds promising. Thank you so much for joining. Next is another formidable leader, a very common figure in the country indeed. He's Honorable Winnie Kiza, who is the former leader of opposition and now a member of the Alliance for National Transformation. You're most welcome, Honorable Winnie.
Thank you, Harris, and good morning, viewers. We are always glad at CCG that you keep viewing and continuing to view this space. Is a moment of joy for us at CCG.
And how is the Alliance for National Transformation?
The Alliance for National Transformation is building its structures. We go slow, steady, and sure. We invite all our viewers here now to join the Alliance for National Transformation so that we can transform our country.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Recently, one of your senior leaders joined the part of Mr. Katana.
It is
just one bedroom to another.
He's in the same house. Same house, only that he has just changed.
All right, change of strategy.
It is one struggle, different fronts.
Yeah, so no contradiction at all.
No contradictions at all. We are in the struggle. That's
I
the
must
most
say
important
that I was
thing.
impressed by the reaction of the AMT.
Yes,
following the,
because we know we are in the same struggle. So we actually said we wish him well. Though we shall miss him in this bedroom.
Okay.
But he's still in the house.
Incredible stuff. Last but by no means the least is the renowned figure, Mr. Sam Evander Mugabe, who is the president of Uganda Parliamentary Press Association. Mr. Sam, you're most welcome.
Thank you, Harris, and good morning, our viewers. I'm so happy that I've been joined by my senior, the former leader of opposition, Honorable Winnie Kiza. I worked with her in Parliament when she was the opposition chief whip, when she was the leader of opposition. And I remember that time when she was commanding the opposition members and even some NRM members who were against lifting the age limit. I remember that day very well. I was standing in the VIP girl up there. I remember I was with the late General Eddie Tumwine, studying together. So, and I usually enjoy her submission whenever she appears on these national TVs and so on. And my brother, Katana, Counsel Katana, nice meeting you here. And Harris, thank you for hosting me.
You must have enjoyed the covering Honorable Winnie, isn't it?
I also enjoyed being covered by him.
Oh, really? Up to now, I've never understood the decision for her not to run again. But
you know, when you're a journalist and you cover people who have content, you also enjoy. But the most challenging time is when you're covering people who don't have content. Because of course.
Indeed.
And when you're covering a person like Honorable Winnie Kiza, where people were saying she's the leader of opposition with action, was an action leader of opposition. And up to date, she has left a big legacy in the August House. Even people talk about her as one of those strong leader of opposition, and I think she was the first female leader of opposition in Parliament. And she did well, of course, not because she's here, but that's the truth. Even the public knows that she is a strong lady not only in Kasese, but also in the whole country, and
Well,
even cancer as well.
Well, that seems to be,
Harris,
yes.
I drew my strength from all of you who are here. Because that was a strength of all Ugandans, most especially our brothers and sisters in the media fraternity, the civil society organizations with whom we closely worked. And of course, I don't forget the beautiful team that I worked with at Parliament, of the members of the shadow cabinet, the team of the civil servants that were there, the policy analysts, the director, and then the members of the opposition, who did an incredible job. It was a real government. Leave these governments that they say are in the shadow. No, in fact, Museveni's government was in our shadow.
later on the show, you will tell us what has changed. But for now, to our viewers, we now take a deep dive into the conversation of the day. And I'll start with you, Sam Ibanda. We would like to understand how Parliament functions. Most of the ordinary Ugandans watching Parliament, they think they only know plenary. But I think there is a lot that is going on in the background. So for the benefit of our viewers, could you please give us a brief overview about how Parliament functions?
Thank you, Harris. Of course, we have talked about plenary, but people also need to understand the committees of Parliament, and we have different types of committees of Parliament. We have the sector committees and the standing committees of Parliament. And usually, it's these committees that usually generate business that goes to the plenary, where members of Parliament, regardless of their political affiliation, usually sit and then they deliberate on the business that has been generated from the different committees of Parliament. Sector usually their tenure is 1 year, and the leadership changes immediately after the 1 year. There is usually leadership change, and then even the standing committees, some people usually call them the accountability committees, and their tenure is 2.5 years. So for this 11th Parliament, the tenure for the standing committees will expire in December this year. So we're expecting to have new leaders or maintaining the existing leaders right now, depending on the people who have powers to make sure that they appoint these leaders. Previously, in the 8th, I think, and 7th Parliament, usually the committee members who were designated on such a committee had powers to elect their leaders. But today, it's political parties that have powers to appoint the leaders of this.
I think that was in the 6th and 7th.
6th and 7th. Thank you for the correction.
Because the 8th, that's when we were under a multi-party dispensation.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now the mode of appointing leaders of these sector and standing committees changed. Like Honorable Kiza is saying, that was in the 6th and 7th Parliament. So today, most of the accountability committees that are being headed by the opposition is now the president of the National Unity Platform that has powers to appoint the leadership of those committees, and even the leader of opposition and the opposition chief whip. So for this case, sector committees usually handle business from the different sectors, like ministries and so on and so on. Let me give you a good example. We have a committee on trade, industry, and tourism. So a committee like trade, tourism, and industry handles only ministries and entities that are under that docket. Like Ministry of Trade, they can handle UNBS, they can handle Ministry of Tourism, they can handle UWA. So those entities report to that committee. So this committee has powers to summon or to invite officials from such entities to come and appear before this committee, also process their budget and the ministerial budget frameworks before presenting them to the budget committee and then after to the plenary. Then the accountability committees like COSASE, we have Park Central, we have Park Local Government, we have the Committee on HIV, and others. So these committees usually handle issues related to accountability. And that's why you usually see that they usually invite officials from the different ministries to come and appear before these ministries to explain how resources, public resources were used. And they usually respond mainly to queries that were raised by the Auditor General's report. And somebody would ask, where do members of parliament sometimes get this information that where they usually task these officials to explain? This information is usually contained in the reports of the Auditor General. So that's how usually committees operate. But importantly, we need to understand that committees also carry out oversight role. They don't only sit in parliament and invite officials to appear before them, ask them, grill them. Sometimes you see them even causing arrest of some members. I don't know whether the rules allow that. When Kiza was one of those that were key in ensuring that they enact these rules of procedure. But of course, every parliament does some amendment in the rules of procedure. But they have powers. They usually say they have powers of the High Court. Some of the accountability committees, they have powers of the High Court. So they can cause arrest, they can even summon, and they can even issue arrest of warrant to any official has refused to appear before any committee. So they can compel that official to appear before a committee by force. So they have all that powers. And the oversight role is not only within the country, but they can also go abroad and carry out oversight role. Like, let me give you a good example. We have the Committee on Foreign Affairs. The Committee on Foreign Affairs has the mandate of going outside the country to supervise our embassies and the commissions on how they're operating and so on. And on several occasions, I've been seeing these members of parliament on the Foreign Affairs Committee moving out of the country to carry out oversight function. And those are supposed to go outside and benchmark. That's why you see them even fighting for these travels. And it's a serious issue, by the way. Not all members get opportunity of traveling outside the country. And they usually fight for this opportunity. You know why? It's because there's some good figures in terms of per diem that comes along, allowances.
And a lot of politics around that.
Of course, there's some politics. There's some politics. But also, I believe that people are supposed even to travel abroad. Those are people, MPs who are active. Because they're members of parliament. After taking that oath, swearing in, you rarely see them in parliament. You only see them once in a while because they know that the law will catch up with them once they miss 15 parliamentary sittings. So they come once in a while, they sign and they go. And you question whether they're in parliament to represent the people, or they're in parliament to make money, or in parliament to make connections, which is a very big issue. And almost all speakers have been fighting with this issue. And up to now, even if they introduced in the system of members of parliament clocking in and clocking out, but still you find that they make sure that this system does not work. And even the speaker, because these are your voters, now you cannot punish your voters on it because they're missing parliamentary sitting. So, and I know there's a gap somewhere on how to improve the presence of both ministers and members of parliament, because there's a lot of absenteeism. Not only members of parliament, but even fine ministers also usually absent themselves from the parliamentary sitting. So most importantly, that's how committees operate. But after processing the business, of course, they present their report to the parliamentary sitting, or after notifying the speaker and then giving them space on the order paper, because you cannot present a report when you're not on the order paper. So that space is provided to you by the Speaker of Parliament. And I've notified, I think in this Parliament, I've noticed that a number of reports where you find 30 members of Parliament, 40 members of Parliament, we find that less than 20 members of Parliament are the one pending their signatures on the reports, which is a challenge, and you ask, which we need to interrogate more as journalists as well.
Yeah, you've raised very important issues. We will interrogate them further and further as the show continues. And I want to thank you for that brief overview. Now let me bring in Honorable Winnie. You've had the elaboration of the structure, the powers and functions of parliamentary committees. Now, I'd like to draw from your experience. Are they working?
I will say yes and no. Yes, because there isn't any committee that does not do work. Like some has said, all members of parliament belong to committees. And in fact, all of them belong to 2 committees. Because a member is on a sessional committee, because that is a policy committee where policies are made. These sessional committees, that's where the ministerial policy statements are made. That is where the budgets of the different entities, the different ministries and agencies of government are discussed before they come to the budget committee, to the finance committee, and subsequently the budget committee, and then to the House. So I know they are doing this job, because there wouldn't have been any budget passed for a committee of parliament that has not scrutinized the budgets and, of course, attaching them to the ministerial policy statements. I will also say no, whether they are working or not, because I know, having been in that House, that these reports can be dealt with by only 2 or 3 members of parliament. You will find that a committee which has over 30 members of parliament, around 5 can be genuine members who will sit in a committee to ensure that business is done. So now the clerk will just look for members who will sign even when they have not been sitting in the committee. Yeah, to just generate quorum for the committee. I got the privilege of chairing some of the accountability committees. I was a chairperson of the Government Assurances Committee. I also chaired the Local Government Accounts Committee. I will say I was lucky, because when I was the chairperson of those committees, for me, you know, some talked about the trips. My awarding of trips, because the chairperson of the committee has that power also of deciding which member to go and which member not to go, was depending on how often you attend committees, how active you are. Whether you're my friend or you're not my friend, as long as you attend, I would, whenever a trip was availed, I would go count on the register. So and so has attended these times. So and so has attended these times. So you would find that it is almost the same people who attend that go. And I would make it clear to the members. Don't ask me how members go for trips. Just know it will be determined by those who attend. And I think to me it worked, because now members started attending. They found a reason to attend, because they knew we were using it for purposes of rewarding members. So they would come. But in the current House, I don't know what measure they use to determine who should go for a benchmarking trip, or whether it is just the distribution of the little resources that they are. I don't know. So what I know is that many members of parliament do not even take the committee work seriously. There are those who feel good about attending their meetings during accountability committees, because there, each one of them wants to be seen. Most especially if the issue is hot. You will see members attending because they know cameramen are there and the whole world is watching to see how they are grilling these ministers and these accounting officers. Yes. So there, everybody will want to make a statement, to be seen, to be working. But yes, there are those who have really portrayed a genuine attitude towards work. And I want to thank them, those who are working. But also those who are not working, they should know that a lot of work of parliament happens in committees. So if members of parliament really want to serve their communities, they need to go down to the committees, because that is where the work is. And the good thing is that at committees level, in the committees, you don't have this 2 minutes thing. Yeah. In the House, they will tell you, each one of you will speak for 2 minutes. Even if you are a good speaker, there isn't much you can speak in 2 minutes. Exactly. But in the committee, you speak until you exhaust all your points. So I would encourage members of parliament to go to the committees and do work there. If your committee is very active, the journalists will find a reason to be there. But if your committee is just doing nothing, you will not see them. Actually, these journalists will tell you that when you call them, they will ask which committee, who is the chair. There we can't go. There will be no content. There will be no content. Who is the chair?
There's no content.
That committee will have come there around 3 times. The members don't turn up. It is only the chairperson who is there. And even the chairperson, either he's a civil servant, he's not asking the questions that should have been asked by politicians, he's not about to follow the money. There we shall not go. But if your committee is very active, you will see journalists filling the room to listen to what is happening in the committee. So even those who want visibility as members of parliament, the committee level would be the ideal place for them to go. Well, I have been seeing some committees work, but there are also those committees where you even ask the members themselves, they will tell you, we don't know when our committee sat. But there is also a tendency around parliament that there are committees that do reports, and reports are never put on the order paper. And yet I know that the business committee of parliament, that which determines the business to be on the order paper, the chairpersons of all the committees are members to this business committee. All the members of the committees of parliament are members to the business committee, and it is chaired by the speaker. That's why someone was telling you that for your matter to find its presence on the order paper, the speaker must put it. Now, the business committee is the one that determines the business of the next quarter. So all these chairpersons go there to say, Madam Speaker, me, I have a report which is ready. Madam Speaker, I have a report which is ready. Even in the middle, after that business committee has sat, a chairperson can still go to the speaker and say, I have a report. I would request that you put it on the order paper so that it can be discussed. And of course, the speaker is under duty to put it on the order paper. But on some occasions, you will find that the reports are on the order paper, but they keep pushing them back. There are new things that emerge. The reports are pushed back and they are never discussed. Eventually, you may even finish a whole parliament before those reports are made. And so for me, that is what sometimes hurts me, that members have spent their time. They have burnt candles to ensure that the report comes out. But the report is never discussed.
Honorable, we'll come back to the issue of reports. You and Sam have raised very important issues, pertinent issues to the effectiveness of Parliament. Councillor Katana, one of the issues the two raises the lack of seriousness by honorable members of Parliament in the business of Parliament. And we've seen this both at the level of plenary, but also at the committee level, which members say this is the heart of Parliament. I've read somewhere where they say 90% of parliamentary work is actually done at committee level, both the sectoral and also the standing committees. What are the roots of this? How can this be so when they are paid so well?
Thank you very much, Harris, and our viewers. I think to begin with, is to look at, first of all, is that Parliament, as it is now, is a creation of an agreed upon national consensus through the constitutional making process that came to an end in 1995 and gave us our current constitutional arrangement, which through which the people of Uganda chose that this is the kind of democracy that we want separation of powers. You have Parliament, it is playing oversight, it is doing checks and balances. We have separation of powers, we have
the judiciary,
things like that. And I think it is one of the analogies, I think, by the Chief Justice Emeritus. He says, when he said that, the idea of separation of powers is like the cooking stones. once one is off, then it becomes
you can't
dysfunctional. So it is impossible to imagine that you can have one arm of the government operating effectively when the other one is dysfunctional, because they draw power from each other.
Exactly.
And so that consensus of separation of powers, of a parliament that is effective and working and checking the executive and things like that, have been eroded by the realities of the politics of today. That you have the head of executive calling members of parliament from his party and says it is Harris who should be our speaker. It is Sam who should be our deputy speaker. And these people are going to play a bipartisan role as leaders of the August House. But they have come on the basis of the kindness and generosity of the head of executive. And we want these people to provide leadership to a group that is going to check the excesses of the executive. Yet this person is grateful and knows that he acts on the mercy of the appointing authority. That is one. Number two, I think we have a challenge in terms, you're asking why these people are paid well. Why are they absent? I think we have a challenge, and it is multidimensional. Civic competence. At the level of leadership, at the level of citizens, and at different levels.
Wow.
So you have Honorable Winnie, who has voters in the village. Expect her to bury on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday. But Honorable Winnie is expected to be attending committees of parliament, attending plenary, on those days when he's supposed to be attending burials, attending introduction parties, attending
weddings.
Exactly. Because the civic competence of the population is also a bit low. The expectations of the leaders is not what ideally these leaders are supposed to do.
I see mine buying ambulances.
Yes.
And so forth.
The other thing is that even the leaders themselves, what motivates people, for example, to become members of parliament or councillors, I think even when you have an ordinary conversation with most people, the motivation is not offer leadership in that regard. Some of them don't even know what the role of a legislator is, but it has become trendy for people to be members of parliament. So those who have some money, those who can appeal to some people, they are all running to parliament. But our society, the challenge we have today, and I saw a joke by someone on social media, a young person, he said that people, when you started to become a teacher, there's teaching practice. When you're studying to be a doctor, there's internship. But a person who will finish senior 6 or finish university, he has not even involved himself or herself in community work or anything. And here he is. He goes, the father is a rich man, he buys voters, the next day he's a member of parliament. So for as long as we do not re-engineer the thinking, the outlook of the population, so that this population can be able to vote for people who are coming to play a critical role. You are going to continue having members of parliament, even when they are good intentioned, that they are going to have divided loyalty. They have a job to do, but they also have expectations of the voters to satisfy. These people are even highly indebted. The other day I saw in the news, the members of parliament from the NRM party were telling the president, I was laughing that these people want to legislate themselves out of debt, that the money renders. And the explanation is not restricted to financial indiscipline, but also the expectations of these. So people who are bothered by repayment of debts for money used in campaigns, money used to run the constituency, how are they going to concentrate to attend these meetings. The other aspect is generally how leadership and responsibility is perceived in our country now. Everyone is doing things casually, from the president to the ministers to the members of parliament. They are conducting business casually. Management of state affairs is such a serious business. So people don't. There are very many. You even meet them in the restaurants when others are having big this budget or whatever. You meet members of parliament and say, there's nothing taking place there. So they don't. So we have a challenge that the leadership space is largely occupied by unserious people. Then they are conducting business casually. Yet this should be. So a lack of civic competence is not restricted to the voters, but also the leaders. But no wonder the leaders are products of that process.
Yeah.
And the other aspect, of course, is the polarized politics of our country. That if Honorable Chiza here is leading a committee in Parliament, these accountability committees, and he's putting an agency task to explain, the members of Parliament and the members of the society, Ugandans, look at this through partisan lenses.
Yeah.
They don't want to see what is happening. They say, no, these are people of opposition. They are disturbing so and so. So that's how it is looked at. And I think we have seen in these sensitive investigations. So you find even people who don't know what is happening, they form part of the mob. They say, Kosasa is chanting so and so because, the president likes this person. So instead of, and these are the losers actually, they are the biggest losers. They would be the beneficiaries if money is not stolen. But maybe on account of lack of knowledge, but also that we tend to look at everything through partisan lenses.
If I may just remind you, you remember when we were investigating the abuse of money under Temangalo, the NSSF fund.
Yes.
President Museveni made a statement which I keep thinking about every day. Mama Mbabazi was into it, and he was the Secretary General of the NRM. So when we went for the State of the Nation address, then we kept shouting, Temangalo, 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 Temangalo. Then the man said, look at these people. You think I can allow that you kutema mtwe? So these ones would want to kutema. They are talking about Temangalo. You people, when RM, should know, the opposition wants to kutema mtwe. So there now the matter became a matter of parties. You want your Secretary General as NRM to be sacrificed by the opposition. Think. We lost the think.
Maybe I can also give you some information. Recently, in this very parliament, the 11th parliament, Kosasa was investigating on the operations of Uganda Airlines. When the minister from Toro came out and said witch hunting our daughter from Toro. So all of us from Toro should fight for her.
Now the issue that is there, that is now the trouble that we have as a country to fight corruption. When a corrupt is identified and is being dealt with, they will say, after all, is our son.
Our politics is
we must fight. This one is our CS cadre. He's being witch hunted. We must ensure that he's protected. This one is from this region, and the region that votes as a bloc. Mr. President, you are not going to get more votes. You are losing votes. All those, like Katana is saying, are also finding their way into the committees of parliament. You will find you are investigating someone. The relatives start coming. I put someone in jail we were in Arua. Before I knew it, I was being told, that person you have arrested belongs to a cultural leadership here. So you are embarrassing the whole cultural institution. I said, now, is it the cultural institution that has stolen? This person is a person of responsibility. He abused the roles that that were given to him. We are just dealing with a civil servant who no, Honorable, you know this person. But, well, we didn't, of course, listen to it. For us, we went ahead with our work. Eventually, the CIDs, I think, are the ones who acquitted him. But now that is where Katana is coming from.
The other challenge and possible explanation, I think for some serious people, they even cease to consider that work serious on account of what happens to the serious work they have done.
Exactly.
That for you as parliament, you have your mandate. After you have executed your mandate well, someone else is supposed to take it up from you. But this person is not interested in implementing the recommendations. So the people lose faith in the process, and in my language they say "Binkwatirechi," you know. Exactly.
How is that translated to English?
It doesn't concern me. I don't care.
Okay.
The other one, since you are telling me to conclude, and I think it should concern all of us as citizens, is what people say in whispers, but now which has become very evident. State capture. That you have individual interests now of individuals, of groups that have a priority over public interest, and these individuals and groups have accumulated more power than even institutions of government, institutions of the state. That you have people who will, for example, a committee has done a report. You remember they are talking about is it called Uganda Airlines? They have done a report. They are coming to present it in Parliament, but because of some forces, even the institution of Parliament cannot allow that report to be tabled. That you have individuals who have become more powerful than Parliament. They have become more powerful than the judiciary. They have become more powerful, and they know whom they can call anytime and frustrate any process. So even when people put in the effort, burn the midnight candle to produce reports, there is going to be a powerful person who will place one call, and that report will not be tabled on the floor of Parliament. Where does that leave the hard-working members of the committee who know that even when we put in effort, it doesn't count? So the political environment needs to be sanitizing for such institutions of the state to perform. They have been greatly undermined by the current politics and power dynamics, that you have power concentrated in an individual. I have told you the president is the one who ensures who becomes a speaker. So if the president does not want some to be investigated, some will not be investigated by Parliament. Because the speaker cannot offend the one who is going to make sure that she becomes a speaker or does not become a speaker.
There's a report by the IGG which says that the thieves of public funds hide behind the president.
That was I don't know.
So the IGG mentioned it.
And of course, lastly, which we should also not hide under the carpet, is that the corruption which ravages our society now has not spared even institutions like Parliament. That you find some members, once that information lands on their table, instead of doing further investigation to follow the money, like Honorable was saying earlier, it's now an opportunity for them to extort. Because these things have been...
They follow it deeper.
Exactly.
To where it was distorted.
And so all these problems, and in my view, these are problems that can only be addressed through robust leadership that is patriotic and is intended. It has well intentions and is deliberate about building a country that has institutions that are alive and working. But now they are largely dysfunctional.
Members, you have raised deeply seated issues which I hope help our viewers begin to appreciate exactly why things are the way they are. We are going to take a very short break, and when we return, we shall dig even deeper into the overarching issues that the panelists have raised. Please stay with us.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create, and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices, and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us on Focus on Parliament. Before the break, the members of the panel are taking us through the deep-seated issues as to how the committees of Parliament function, and we are beginning to understand that the issues actually run deeper and deeper into our society, taking into account cultural, social, and other economic factors. It is the president of the ANT that likes to say that the process is as important as the outcome. Hearing from Councillor Katana, you can't help but think that the problem begins right at the process of election of the members of Parliament, who sponsors the member of Parliament, the attitude of the voters towards the members of Parliament when they vote for Sam Evander. What do they think that Sam Evander is going to do in Parliament? Mr. Sam Evander, what do you make of the reflections of Councillor Katana?
Thank you, Harris. I think Council and the Honorable Winnie raised important issues. What we also need to examine is whether our people understand the role of members of Parliament. That's very important. Because even when you get to our communities, Kasese, you go to Luka, where I come from, you would find that 90% of the voters don't understand what members of Parliament are supposed to do in Parliament. That's why they were saying a member of Parliament is supposed to attend burials, is supposed to attend weddings, introduction function. Once you miss, then they will say, this is not a true representative that we are supposed to have. But who is supposed to sensitize the people to better understand the role of members of Parliament, or Parliament in general? So the leaders were supposed to do that. And Parliament is supposed to do that. They have a budget for that. And even members of Parliament are also supposed to explain to their voters what their role is in Parliament. And few of them, they have community radio stations and so on. They rarely talk about that because they fear once they get to the airwaves and explain the role of a member of Parliament, they'll think that the people will say this is not the right treat that I was supposed to have. But also, let's also talk about the independence of Parliament that we have today. Is our Parliament independent? Yes or no? I think it depends on the person who is watching. Can give us the...
Before you move on to the independence of the institution itself, because we recognize that there is a problem at the societal level. And are you suggesting that for as long as we still have economic hardships, then the situation remains bleak?
Harris, that's why I was saying 90% of the voters don't understand what members of Parliament are supposed to do. And that's why they end up voting people who have money. they vote for money. They don't vote for people who have the abilities to represent them in the House. So as long as you have your money, you'll get to that parliament. Even if you have your points, even if you can articulate your issues in parliament, even the communities, but as long as you don't have money, voters will not vote for you. Honorable kids, when the kids will tell you that. Because even when you are planning to join politics, you need fuel, you need to protect the what? The vote. And even the money for buying the what? The electoral commission officials. That's what is happening right now. Yeah, my Jonas, I'm telling you. The people who buy or compromise these electoral commission officials, and they announced, and they have been seeing it, even in these by-elections that we have been having, either with an interference from above, which above they don't mention, or with money being compromised. So these two factors work. One, if you don't have security, and during the times of campaign or during elections, during the people who eat a lot, their plate that is spiced up with money and so on, these are the security officers and electoral commission officers. Once you don't engage the DPC, DISO, the returning officer, don't expect that one day or one time will be announced to be the winner of an election. I'm telling you what is on the ground. So that's where corruption starts from. So by the time you got the voters, you have also to inject in money. I remember that was 2006. I was covering campaigns in Kamolida. So Honorable Walubiri was in that race with Honorable Salah Musumba and the Honorable Chiinji. And Honorable Walubiri had a rally somewhere. And after addressing the people, do you know what they said? You have left us bad. Make sure you do what?
We are thirsty.
We are thirsty.
Yeah.
So make sure that you do what? Do something if you want our vote. And they said, I'm not here to make sure that I bribe you, but I'm here to make sure that you see the abilities that I have to send me to parliament. Can I tell you, in the whole constituency of almost 6 sub-counties, he even never got 200 votes, simply because he was telling people directly that I don't have money to give you or to bribe you. So that's where the challenge is starting from. But all in all, you cannot blame even members of parliament. It's the system. It is the system. Because if the system is straight, then transparent, then you would not expect voters to start asking for money. Let me give you a good example. I was in Rwanda. Here, there were neighbors. During the campaigns, any voter who asks any contestant money is supposed to be arrested.
Wow.
You don't ask any contestant. As long as candidates are in the race, you're not supposed to ask them for money. Once you ask them for money, you are going to be arrested. So even people now know that in our system, I'm not supposed to ask for a bribe or for money from
That's
candidates.
the role of leadership.
Comes a cultural change.
That's it.
Consciousness
In
change.
Rwanda here, you go through, you get an opportunity and read about Rwanda. I was there when they're lifting the presidential term limits. I was there, I covered Rwanda. And I traveled the whole country of Rwanda. So you cannot even risk, even the people can tell you, don't risk even ask a candidate money. Because they don't have money. What they're going to do is they're going to represent us in the House.
In Rwanda, they recalled a member of parliament for over drinking. He was drinking and driving, and they arrested him, I think, around 3 times. So on the 3rd time, they said this is too much. The laws are clear. We are charging you. You are paying the fine, but at the same time, you are being recalled from parliament. Because you are found in breach of the law. You are embarrassing the institution of parliament. Rwanda. At least that happened when I was also there.
I mean, thank you, Sam, for that example, because my next question to Honorable Winnie was going to be, can't we get good leaders in poor societies. But then going by that example you give for Rwanda, I mean, Rwanda is not economically any better than Uganda, save for a different system, like you say, which, you know, gives us a different perspective from that kind of thinking, that for as long as people are poor, they cannot get better leaders.
So it's all about the system. System.
And you know, the system is always determined by the leaders. Someone in leadership will determine so many things. First of all, you know that even the courts of law in Uganda gave a ruling that the president is not supposed to give gifts during a campaign. The serious offender is the president. He goes giving envelopes at rallies, even when he's in a contest. Among the reforms that they said should happen, the High Court, the Court of Appeal actually, among the reforms that they said should happen was that once a president, sitting president, is a candidate, he's barred from giving gifts. All this started when President Museveni started giving gifts. I can tell you that when I started campaigning in 98 as a councillor, I was not giving any money. In fact, wherever you would go, the voters
would give you...
Sorry for the interruption.
Yes.
If you want to appreciate the influence of a leader on the thinking and the behavior of the population, you look at things like dressing. A leader can introduce a style of dressing and everyone will take it up.
Yes.
Something as basic as that. It shows you that if you are unfortunate to have an indisciplined leader, you'll find the population embracing the indiscipline because it is fashionable to behave like the leader.
Because now, you know, some talked about people now bribing the security, because now we know that the leader that we have uses security in matters of elections. So everybody has to ensure that the security in their area is with them to win. They are in good books of the security to win an election. So what do you have to do? Make sure that you put them on your payroll. They are your friends, and you make sure they are not changed. If they are changed, they introduce you to the incoming and say, you know, that one is a good one. Can keep you happy. Now, if we went back to the workings of Parliament, in fact, you are only talking about the Speaker. Even the chairs of committees, it is the president who suggests to the government chief whip. So even the committee chairs are appointed by the president. While in the 6th and 7th Parliament, the members would sit and say, I think Sam is going to be our chairperson, or Katana is the next chairperson. This time they don't have that power. It is the president who has the power. The president will sit and say, you know, Harris will be the chairperson of the legal committee. Katana is going to be the chairperson. He only gives them to the chief whip to only go and read things that have been predetermined.
I think even the membership.
Yes, even the membership
is even being determined
by
NRM
caucus. SEC sits to say, I think we have an interest.
I think can be on this committee.
Which SEC is also
and the fertile committees there.
This is members of SEC.
The committees that are in
So I am even telling, even members of SEC, someone will have to first do a job within the members of SEC and say, you know, I want to go on this committee. Because they know they are committees which keep investigating issues.
But they also must understand the wishes of the master.
Because also the master has interest, depending on some legislations that he's intending to bring to the House. You will see, it was I think, last, the time when we were going for the constitution amendments, there were changes that were made in the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee to make sure that the people who are on that committee are people who will be able to represent his interests and be able to sign the majority report.
What I hear is that what essentially happens is deal making, brokerage, nothing about competence.
I think Katana said it very well that we are under siege. All the institutions of government have been captured. there is total state capture. That one is very clear. To the extent that you will have cadre judges in the courts of law. Now we have loyal cadres in the parliament. You have loyal cadres in the civil service. To the extent that all civil servants are on tension to fulfill the interests of the big man. Yes, we know that he's the head of state. But there is a constitution that provides for checks and balances, that they are institutions of government which must ensure that each checks the other. But in this case, the president is the head of executive. He ensures there is someone he will control in parliament, someone he will control in the judiciary, someone he will control. He appoints all the permanent secretaries. So he will have to look for cadre judges who will be permanent secretaries. He has ministers who are his own. A minister is supposed to be bigger than, actually by law, a minister is bigger than the permanent secretary. But they are ministries where the permanent secretary has more powers than the minister. To the extent that the minister also fears the permanent secretary. In the current scenario, see when Betty was talking about the NSSF ED. And Betty as a minister had sat with the board of NSSF and they had said we are going to renew the contract of the ED. But Saleh called Betty and the committee again and said, here.
If you are looking for evidence of state capture, you don't even need to have a commission.
You don't even have to have a commission to investigate. Saleh called them. And the minister candidly wrote and said, you know, chairperson of the board, arising from the meeting we had in Kapeka with Saleh, I am constrained.
What is Saleh's appointment again?
Hey, Saleh is the presidential advisor on what? On gardening?
Those are just clothing.
Now,
but the substance is that
that's what you put there.
Wow.
You saw the members of...
But also, Honorable Winnie,
Yes.
Kiza also need to understand the mode of appointing these accounting officers, the permanent secretaries.
Yes.
All of us, I think previously, somebody would grow within the system.
Yes.
Because if somebody starts as an assistant secretary, senior assistant secretary, principal assistant secretary, under secretary, you get the experience. And by the time you're appointed to be a permanent secretary, you already know how
and
the
there's
system,
a fair understanding of how the state runs.
how the state runs.
So when you are
He knows the nature of his
But
relationship with
these
the
days,
minister.
They can pick anyone. Even you, Harris, tomorrow you can be
When
appointed.
you- when
If
you
I
are-
have a
permanent
good
secretary.
contact.
when you are under state capture, that is what happens.
Unfortunately, I don't have
As long
anyone.
as you have no contact.
When you are under state capture, that is what happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Many things happen mysteriously.
Yeah.
Now, the other day you saw a member of parliament who said, you know, I was seen with Muhozi because I really wanted Muhozi to go and connect me to the father. So now it is through him, with him, and in him
Yeah.
that you can see who?
The father.
The father. It is through Muhozi
And the father is everything.
that you can see the son
Yeah.
and then Muhozi. So the state is captured by a family.
Yeah.
And everybody is working towards fulfilling the interests of one family. And because of this, you can't find any state institution that will work normally. So we don't have to blame parliament.
No.
We don't blame it on them. Bambi, they are also criminal. They are also victims
Yeah.
of state capture.
Let me bring in Council Katana. You earlier raised pertinent, deeply seated issues at various levels of society. I know you're a senior leader at the National Unity Platform, which is supposed to be the government in waiting or government in waiting.
Which is
Which
not
is,
supposed.
which is. Indeed, yeah. So my question is, what do you think would be done differently, or what would NUP do differently to clean up the mess? Because, you know, we set out to discuss the effectiveness of the committees, but we realize that the problem runs bigger and bigger and beyond what happens actually in Parliament. That actually what happens outside Parliament and before Parliament is constituted is more important to changing the effectiveness.
The process
of Parliament.
is as good as
Yeah.
is as important as the outcome.
Yeah. So I know, that
I think the starting point is that dictatorships, since time immemorial and world over, they normally do two things, among others. One is deny people leaders. Make sure that people have no leaders. You see, I have seen people arguing that, well, you can buy everyone, but the people will remain opposite. But as long as the masses have no leader, they will quarrel, they will shout, but they will be hardened to do what the ones with the coercive arms
authority.
Yes, exactly. Number two is normally the dictatorships are amorphous. Nobody knows who has power. So when you're on these streets, people will say, Wanyankore have power. When you reach the Wanyankore, they will break it down to the exactly. When you reach there,
they will break it down to families.
When you go to a family, they break
individuals.
it down to a maternal lineage. When you go down, they will say no, even in-laws are outsiders. So he was talking about people who say above. There is no above, but people have found a convenient explanation for doing mischief. And for me, I think any sane government, the first of all, the first thing is to empower institutions of the state to perform. If we have parliament, allow members of parliament to choose a leader. But also don't interfere with the processes that bring members of parliament.
Exactly.
When we were growing up, and I'll give an example of Greater Ankole, where I come from, particularly Greater Shen, we had leaders who were, you would say they were cadres of movement, but they were very objective people. The Honorable Manya Mshega, the Honorable Richard Kijuka, they were very, very strong people. But because there was a need, these people continuously, at different occasions, they would challenge the leadership on some issues. And many of them were at the center of creation of PAFO. The leadership was uncomfortable with these people because they were giving leadership to people. And dictatorships thrive on denying people leadership. So they made sure that these people are defeated. They are pushed out of the system, and they encourage creepers who will know, oh, what does Mzee want? This is what they will do. When you go to contest now, I went and contested in 2017, and people would tell you, we like the ideas, but how much money do you have? Votes now are for buying. But where does money come from? There's only one source here that controls money. Where are you going to get personal money to buy votes? They say, how are you going to guard your votes? Our votes, if we vote for you, these days there's rigging. Who is going to guard our votes? Who runs this? So, around these institutions,
DPC.
Exactly, around these institutions to operate. If you have put in place electoral commission, in fact, even the institutions are like electoral commission, we need to modify in the law and even in practice how people, office bearers, come to these offices. So that they are able to exercise independence. Facilitate and support them. The money now that is used to, because you see the current administration or regime, the biggest problem is that they have left the running of state affairs to meet my concern. They are concentrating every minute. Their preoccupation is how to keep power for life. You see, like in North Korea, the grandfather, the father, the son, the grandson. That is the model. So they are not bothered whether the country is running or not for as long as for them they are in their offices. So these institutions, if you empower them, and the money that now you are using to hire support, organizing birthday parties, organizing what? You support these institutions that have mandate. The other day I saw this organization, CCG, trying to talk about translation of the constitution. People, in 1995, when the constitution was promulgated, there's a provision that this should be translated into local languages. It has never been done. So how do you expect these people to know their power as citizens, to know the role of a member of parliament when they don't know the constitution. How many people in Uganda can read and understand English? So support such initiatives. Make sure that the population is able to participate in the running of state affairs. As citizens, exercise their power and mandate, then you as leaders. But if you want to keep power forever, then you don't want the population to do what?
You know, Katana, Article 1 of the Constitution says all power belongs to the people. But when you see now, it's like where there is people, we better put all power belongs to the president.
Yes.
Because now all power of who should be elected, who should be in which office, who should do what is now into the presidency. And just like you have said, until we dismantle that and we allow institutions of government to do their jobs, to us at the Alliance, that's what keeps us busy. To ensure that we let each person do their work uninterrupted. Create institution, build structures, and ensure the structures function. The leaders at the lower levels are given their work and they do it. The one at the top does his or her work and you will do it sufficiently. And we believe that this should translate in all institutions of government. That if I'm made a minister, you allow me to function. But even ministers will not work until they know what is the mind of the president. And yet
They
they are
don't
supposed,
have any power.
yeah, they are meant to advise the president. But which advice does he receive? He's I know it all. Maybe that is why he's called it to have.
Conclude your point,
Yes.
so I
So-
can bring in some.
So these institutions must be allowed to exercise their mandate and must be facilitated to execute that mandate. But number three, and in line with that, is that if, for example, a person is faulted by the committee of parliament, a report is submitted, take action, regardless of who the relative is, regardless of which political party this person supports, take action. Let it serve as an example to other people. Corruption, which is affecting what we have talked about and all other aspects of our society, cannot be fought through posturing. There must be seen to be action from the chief executive of the country. But if he's always justifying, if you harass these people, he said the other time, if you harass these people, they will take the money to other countries. But why don't you stop them from stealing the money?
So
why should you be held at ransom because you want them to invest back the money they have stolen? Why don't you stop them? So I think the challenges we have really are challenges of governance and leadership. These other ones are all they are symptoms and effects.
thank you very much indeed, Council Katana. Mr. Sam Ayonda.
Yes, please.
What needs to be done?
I think 3 or 2 issues needs to be done. One, we need to remove politics in the operations of parliamentary committees. Once politics is removed, I know we shall have competent leadership in these committees. And amendment of the rules of procedure. Once the rules have been amended, allow members, we get back to the old system of where committee members have been designated can have the powers to choose the competent leader. I know these committees will move because as long as members have decided on the leader they want, these committees will perform. But challenges usually come when the leader that have been given, most of them have doubt in this leader. So somebody who is incompetent will not steer the committee, but somebody who is competent will steer the committee. And another issue is all about allowing members also to choose the committee of their choice, depending on their profession. Somebody is a lawyer, but you are saying you go to the committee of health. Somebody is a doctor, but you are saying you go to a committee of security. Allow people to choose the committee of their choice, where they feel they will serve better. And then the outcome of the reports of these committees also will be 100% perfect.
All right.
And then lastly, Parliament, the Parliament of Honorable Winnie Kiza, the 10th Parliament, was talking about amending the Parliamentary Act, Administration Act,
Administration of Parliament.
Administration of Parliament Act. But up to today, I think they have not considered that. They need to prioritize it and be able to address some of these gaps. As long as these gaps are not being filled, then we shall continue having the challenges we are seeing today. Seeing committee members running to accounting officers, independently to ask for bribes, because they know such an accounting officer is going to appear tomorrow. They will go there and say, "Do you know what is going to happen if you don't act?"
Yeah.
In fact, the word they usually use, if you don't behave, better behave like a Ugandan. If you don't behave like a Ugandan,
thank you
thank you
indeed,
so
Sam.
much.
Usually on this show, we give a panelist 30 seconds to give you concluding remarks. And we'll start with you, Council Katana.
Well, it's been a pleasure to participate in this discussion. And I hope and believe that one time we'll have a system where institutions of the state are able to perform their mandate, and that as a nation we are preoccupied with the duty to transform the lives of the people of Uganda, not just politics of who is in which office for how long, but that we are able to focus on serving and transforming the lives of the people of Uganda, because the world now is discussing very critical and fundamental things.
Exactly.
And for us, we are lost out there. We don't know how even the next election will be conducted. There is uncertainty in almost everything, except for the person who knows that is controlling most of the things. The rest of the population is living in uncertainties. Yet, nations are transforming. Societies are now, they are confronting bigger challenges. The world has moved away from small things. They are controlling the air, they are controlling the water. People are now on artificial intelligence and things like that. But for us, we are still dealing with situations of power shortage. The other day I saw that there was a power shortage in the country. No generation of I saw National Water also saying, well, we are not able to do the job because of the power blackout. The other day you saw what was being reported from Kawempe Hospital. Yet, as a nation, we are not focusing on addressing those issues. Why? Because there are these key issues of governance that stand in the way. That as a country, we are so polarized that we are not discussing the development agenda because we are divided along those political lines. So we need a leadership that will bring the people of Uganda together, even when they disagree on certain things, that they are able to form a national consensus that we can rally around and take our nation and continent to another level.
Thank you. Honorable Winichizo.
In a country like ours, Harris, I was surprised that our president, who went to Russia to just negotiate how they can give us wheat.
How they can give us what?
Wheat.
Wow.
How they can give us wheat and possibly how they can forgive us debts. But I'm also aware that we were forgiven debts between 1998 and 2000 there. Russia at some point also forgave debts that African countries had, but that has not stopped us from having debts again. We are heavily indebted as a country. So the issue of leadership is very, very critical. If you don't see parliament functioning, it's the head. You know, the fish rots from the head. That's where it begins rotting from. Even a country, to function or not to function, is determined by the leadership. So the Ugandans must also know that if they want better services, if they want systems to run, they better reconsider their choices of the leaders that they vote. And yes, like Sam said, there are situations where we need to even go away from politicking itself. And we begin looking at the leaders who will be of quality. But as things stand now, just because so and so has said vote this one, or because the person has money, they will just vote.
The president one time while at a campaign rally in
Yeah.
Western Uganda said, oh, no, even if the person sleeps,
Ebirala mubindekere. Even
as
if he
long as at the
sleeps,
time of voting he comes out and
he
votes for
comes
the
out
NRM
and
position,
votes
we
for
are
the
going to
NRM. And I saw it vividly in Parliament. There is a time where Mzee Kajura just woke up and said yes, and yet his side was supposed to say no. And then when they said, hey, then he said, no, because for him, he knew that the thing is yes. So he was asleep. So if we are going to have a country where, unless something is of the president's interest or his family cannot be worked upon, then we are doomed. We can't spend billions and billions of money on a venture like Karubowa, where Ugandans are borrowing money to put up Rubowa that has never been put up. All of you are seeing what is happening in Naguru. Ugandans were chased from their modest accommodation that was in Naguru with the promise that they were going to build for them comfortable homes. And yes, they went, but are the homes there? In a situation where you still have a government that closes a learning institution to put a supermarket, to put a mall, you remove Shimoni from town and you put Kingdom Hall, you shifted Shimoni to the bushes, you just know that things are not at ease. And until we change such type of leaders and we put into our leadership people who care for the country, Katana called them patriotic. You know, these ones who are in leadership, they also call themselves patriots. But until we get the real patriots who have a heart for this country, who have a feeling that is human, we shall continue crying, we shall continue lamenting, and it is all upon us now to decide. Though I know that our choices are limited, where you have an electoral commission that sits to determine who will be elected, even when they are voters who are supposed to vote. It is just a shame.
Thank you, Mr. Sami.
As a journalist who usually gets an opportunity to cover parliamentary proceedings and also committee proceedings, and as a Ugandan, I'm deeply concerned that almost 80% of the officials who appear before these committees, they have issues related to misappropriation of public funds. I believe if the little funds that we have as a country are put to good use, every Ugandan will be happy. And we will be having better services, better roads, better schools. You get the hospital to find their medicine. And as the president of the Uganda Parliamentary Press Association, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I know it has been my maiden appearance.
Yes,
yeah?
yes. It's been a fantastic one. You and Mr. Katana.
You'll keep coming.
I'll keep coming.
Thank you so
But I
much.
also want to, being one of the leaders of the journalists in this country, I want to say that we are still against the directive of the president saying it's only UBC and New Vision that are supposed to get business from government. That's a deadly directive. For us, our position is clear as leaders of journalists. We are saying let UBC and New Vision be given advice, but also the private media houses, they're entitled because they pay taxes. They employ Ugandans. The people they employ, they are not non-Ugandans. They're Ugandans, the people that are giving jobs. Once they implement that directive, then it means hundreds of Ugandans are going to lose jobs. It's not only journalists who work in these media houses. We have engineers. We have people in the IT departments. We have people in the sales department.
Accounts.
We have in the accounts. We have in the administration, in the sales. People operate these cameras and so on to see that the picture you are seeing today, the audio that is perfect, is so. It's just my appeal to the president, even if we have a meeting on 10th, is that he needs to revoke that directive because it's going to do a disservice on the private sector. And you'll see a number of media houses, private media houses closing. So I think it's high time to see that he can revoke that directive.
When you meet him, you should remind him that he liberalized the economy.
Mm.
So when he liberalized the economy, he opened up to an economy where there is free flow of services and goods.
And by the way, you could even wonder, you are saying companies that have been started by Ugandans, private companies, because majority of these private media houses, they're owned by Ugandans. Now you are refusing to give Ugandans money or business, but you are giving Chinese money, Chinese companies money. And they're taking the money outside the
You
country.
should not even go in competence. Let UBC
compete in the market.
Let UBC compete.
Yeah.
It has the machinery, it has the presence.
Yeah.
Let them up their game. They will attract advertisers.
True.
It's as simple as that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam Ibanda. Thank you, Honorable Winnie Chiza, for always turning up. Thank you so much, Mr. Katana Benjamin. Thank you indeed to all of you. It's been a pleasure. What a thoughtful and enriching conversation it has been. I hope to engage with you once more. I hope that our viewers have enjoyed as much as I have. And to our dearest gentle viewers, it is always an honor to have you join us for Focus on Parliament. Please leave us a comment on our YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter space at Civic Space TV, so we know what you think about this conversation. I've been your host, Harris Ocampo. Until next weekend, bye-bye. Please do take care of yourself.